Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for November 3rd through 9th. This week I read 3 books, I watched 2 shows, I watched 2 movies, and I listened to 1 book. First this week I read Human Face. This is the first in a detective thriller mystery series, and I actually read the second one a couple of weeks ago, which is why I've doubled back to read the first one. Fortunately for me in the second one, although things were alluded to in the first one, it didn't really affect my reading experience too much. Besides, I knew like one thing was going to happen, and things I assumed were going to happen in this book actually happened previous to this book, so I wasn't even really spoiled for those. This mystery is all about a suspicious disappearance of this woman who works in this very remote lodge that is actually the home base for this charity called Human Face. And it's suspicious not only because somebody has disappeared from there before, about 4 years previously, but somebody else was supposed to pick this person up and this person wasn't there. That would normally be like, sure, whatever, but that person ends up needing some very crucial information from the person that disappeared, and of course is very worried about not getting it. I should also mention that this takes place on the Isle of Skye, which is a beautiful part of Scotland, and the person brought in from Edinburgh to just double check, make sure that everything's above board, is this man who wants to be working right now, but his colleagues find it really difficult to work with him, not because he's a particularly bad person, but because he just suffered a tragedy, and he's kind of, for lack of a better word, a downer. People just don't know how to deal with him. They want him to like take some time to grieve, and he knows if he does that, he's going to grieve at the bottom of a bottle. This is one of those very small communities where everybody kind of knows everybody, and we do a lot of head hopping between the different people that are suspects or they're potential witnesses, or they're trying to figure out what's going on just as much as the cops are. And I found this really entertaining. I think I liked the second one better, but this was a good start to the series. Next, we have a graphic novel called Crumbs, and this was actually recommended by one of my lovely commenters, so thank you so much for that. This one is about a witch who likes to go to this same cafe all the time and get the very same things from the cafe. And she's actually working towards this very important goal of working on the local council. However, when you work on this council, you actually have your memory wiped, so you don't actually remember when you're in your day-to-day time what you were doing for the council. And she has this really interesting skill set where she can't really look into the future, but she can tell you what is correct now, which is something that is very, very rare and she can actually be put to a lot of use for, but she doesn't feel like she's doing very exciting things during her internship. Additionally, this power just kind of comes to her, especially if she touches somebody, so she tries not to touch people because she doesn't want to just like pry into their lives, and she ends up dating somebody who works at the cafe. And then there's many shenanigans to do with that and meeting that person's friends and backstories and all of those things. This had a lovely art style. It had a couple of different subplots that were really fun to explore. This was just a really cute and good time. I highly recommend it. Thirdly, I read Evil in Me. This one is a horror book about this woman who is going through a pretty rough time. This one takes place somewhere in the 1980s. We know somewhere from the beginning something happened where she ended up having to go to jail, and then she was adjudicated to see if she had any mental disorders, and if she was put on different medications, and she's stopped taking her lithium about 2 weeks ago. She's also currently on probation, so she's working at the Y, and she is really having a fun time actually teaching kids how to play guitar, but that's because she's teaching them fun songs, songs that the person who runs the YMCA thinks are demonic. So when that person actually finds her doing it, she's like, you can't be near the children anymore because you're a bad influence. That means she ends up having to go work outside near the pool, which is really super hot, and do all this maintenance to do with garbage, which means she sees her ex-boyfriend, who she really doesn't want to see because it's all his fault in the first place as to why she was arrested. However, she only has 1 more week of probation, so she really needs to keep it together. In addition to working at the Y, she also does some caretaking for this older man named Josh, and their relationship is absolutely adorable. But he has some really cool old stuff that he brought with him from a synagogue he used to be a caretaker at, and all of it's still in boxes. So she's helping him unpack these boxes and asking him about all of these cool old artifacts when something goes terribly awry. This one was super interesting. I didn't know where it was going to go from page to page. There were disgusting things that happened. There was also another character you'd see a perspective from every once in a while, and you're like, okay, how is this going to fit in? And what do you mean she has to battle literal demons and then also this serial killer? What do you mean? All to the backdrop of punk rock, of course. This one was really fun. The author is also an illustrator, so there's some great illustrations in this as well. And if any of that sounded cool to you, definitely check this out. I also found out at the very end when I was reading the bio for the author that the songs that are in this book were actually made into real songs by a punk rock band. And I just find that kind of collaboration very cool. On to what I watched this week. I started in the 6th season of Station 19, and before I knew it, I was into the 7th season, and then I was at the last episode of the 7th season, and I stayed up a little bit too late because you can't just watch the 9th episode knowing there's only one more episode in the season. So I stayed up late to watch this last episode of the season, and at the end of this episode I found out this is the last episode ever and the show has been cancelled, and I'm sad. I expect maybe some of these characters will show up on Grey's Anatomy. I mean, one definitely will, because there's even mention that he's transferring back to being a surgeon. And obviously another one is married to somebody else who is also working at the hospital, and yeah, so I'm sure I'll see some of these characters again, but there was also a really rude cameo in that last episode that, you know, made me tear up, and I didn't appreciate it. All in all though, this is a great spin-off series. I really enjoyed it, and I'm just really sad that I'm gonna have to say goodbye to the majority of these characters, because like some of these characters move away at the end, and it's just like, okay, are they getting a different spin-off? Because I would watch it. The other show we watched this week is the first 6 episodes of the 18th season of Taskmaster, because almost all of the episodes of that season are up. I believe the last episode actually airs this week and then hopefully is up on YouTube pretty quickly. This is a wonderful show, and it's really fun to get back into watching Taskmaster because obviously we went through seasons 1 through 17 fairly quickly. And this is just a fun time. We cackled so much while we were watching these episodes last night, and I kind of wanted to stay up to keep watching them, but I need my sleep. My goodness, it's hard to get out of bed because I was waiting for the sun to be up, and it's not coming up today. It's just going to be gray and disgusting all day, and I hate it. So it's nice to have things like Taskmaster to bring some sunshine to my life. As for the movies we watched Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, which came out this year. I used to watch Beverly Hills Cop, at least the first movie, a lot as a kid. So I was like, what do you mean they made a new one this year? This one has some fun references to the original trilogy, and as it starts out, our titular character is actually working in Detroit, and then he gets a call basically being like, your daughter's in a little bit of trouble, and it's kind of my fault that she's in a little bit of trouble, so maybe you want to come help her out. He hasn't really talked to his daughter all that much. He wasn't a really good dad, and when her parents divorced, she went with her mom, and there was a whole thing to do with that. But she's currently working as a defense attorney, and she just took on this case, and then her life was threatened for doing that. So now he not only wants to figure out exactly what's going on with his daughter, but when he arrives, his old partner is nowhere to be found, and he was supposed to be picking him up from the airport, so like that's an issue. This is full of the typical shenanigans of this type of movie, to the point where you're like, how does this guy still have a job? And then we throw in Joseph Gordon-Levitt, because why not? And he's just delightful. I had a really good time with this. Again, a lot of laughs were had, and you just have to ignore the fact that this man should have been fired so many times over. Also, given the date that happened this week and the thing that we were trying to ignore until we knew the outcome of it, we also watched V for Vendetta because, you know, remember, etc. I don't think I really need to tell you what this is. It was a graphic novel from the 80s that they turned into a movie about this character who wears a Guy Fawkes mask for reasons that you find out as you're watching it. Has a lot to do with revolution and standing up for yourself and your nation. And those are important messages at this point, and yeah, that's all I can really will myself to say about that. As for the book I listened to this week, I feel like this was probably the perfect book to be listening to this week, because there were many times where I was just walking down the street listening to it and wanting to shout at characters. I possibly did shout out loud at characters, or at least made noises out loud as I was walking, and the epilogue legitimately made me start to tear up as I was coming home from the gym the other day, so there's that. That book is Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. This is all about a very small town in Georgia called Troy, and this woman, Lula Dean, decides that there are certain books that should not be in the library and that she should ban these books. She also, of course, wants to ban books in the school library, and the woman that actually runs the school board is somebody she's been rivals with since they were both in high school. Nobody really usually takes Lula Dean all too seriously, but she gets this committee of concerned parents together, and they actually ransack the libraries and take out whatever books they find objectionable. And then there has to be some legal thing to go through to figure out whether or not these books books are going to be reinstated. The woman who runs the school board's name is Beverly, and she has a daughter who's away at college, but she actually comes back for this weekend, and she has a brilliant idea. In the darkness of night, she goes to Lula little library, which she's placed outside with very wholesome books that people should actually be reading that aren't full of smut and the wrong things and things that children shouldn't see. And she takes the dust jackets off all of those books and puts them on the books that were on the banned list and puts them in there. So people in the town, not knowing this happened, pick up one book, end up reading a different book, and it completely changes the course of so many people's lives. This is one of those books where you're following all the characters in this very small town and seeing how these different reading choices affect them. And what I really love about this is it really goes into the backstory of every single person and treats them with such humanity. Because yeah, there are a lot of people in this book that I would just not get along with if we were in a room together. However, you can also see where they're coming from at certain points. You also get a lot of backstory as to how Lula has always been this way, and it's actually pretty dangerous, and how she's a very self-serving person, and she always has been. I cannot state highly enough how much I absolutely loved this book. I loved getting to know all of these different characters. I was obviously outraged at many points. Like I said, I was yelling at my audiobook as I was walking down the street. I'm that weird lady in the neighborhood, and I am perfectly fine with that. These types of book bans are obviously a really big deal, and they are being relentless in the States right now. And if you want to know way more about that from somebody who actually lives in the south of the United States, please check out my friend Rachel from Reads with Rachel. She talks about book banning a lot because she has some resident county book banners who are constantly up to shenanigans where she lives. And this book not only made me so angry about the people that are doing these types of things, but it also humanized them a little bit. But obviously I still don't agree with the choices that they're making. And this also gave me a little bit of hope for the future, which I think we need at this point. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!